Hello, welcome to another Liquid Experience. I'm Dan. Um, this is an opportunity to taste a variety of wines and see what happens. See what happens. See what you sense and what you feel and what you think. And I'm excited to share some wines that I think are compelling and talk you through these. And I'm also excited to taste these wines again myself. So if you have a kit in front of you, open up that kit. And we're going to start with wine number 1. Once again, I am recording this in the early hours of the day. It's just after 9 o'clock a.m. So, a couple things. It's a nice justification to drink on the early side, but that's why I'm only pouring. Partial pours. So here we go. Wine number 1. So interesting, isn't it? This is a very, very expressive wine in the nose, in my opinion. It smells like a garden to me. It's got fruit qualities, like a lot of citrus, lime, and lemon, and tangerine. But there's also some vegetal qualities in this wine, like freshly cut bell pepper. There's lychee, which is kind of an intense berry. I think it's a berry that I don't see very much in the States, but I remember they enjoyed them in England. It's zippy, isn't it? This wine, it's very expressive. Also strikes me that there are some peach and nectarine qualities in this wine. Really, really fresh, isn't it? Really fresh and fruity. Let's see what it tastes like. Neat. Zippy. That citrus and peach and almost Meyer lemon, kaffir lime, intensity, long finish, very flavorful, isn't it? Very flavorful. That slight vegetal note is definitely there as well, isn't it? Kind of that green bell pepper quality. It almost drinks like lemonade or grapefruit juice, kind of like grapefruit juice, because there's some body there, but then it finishes very, very tart. Interesting wine, interesting, expressive, not subtle. I mean, there's a lot. It's somewhat well, it has a voice, and it's using that voice to express itself. What else can I say about this? It seems like a fun wine to drink. I like how it tastes. I really like the way it smells with all that expression, and wonder how you are enjoying this wine. Just like last time, well, this time I'm going to do a better job of it. I'm going to pause before I tell you what the wine is, because some people might enjoy pausing the video and trying to figure out what wine they are drinking. All 6 wines today are wines that are testable in an organization called the Court of Master Sommeliers, where the expectation is that you can describe and identify the wines. So these are all fair play. In fact, these wines I'm going to taste later on with a group, and but they don't know what they are, and they are going to basically tell us what they are based on the sense experience. So pause now, and then I will unveil wine number one. Okay. This is a Sauvignon Blanc, and it comes from New Zealand. It's from a producer called Craggy Range, and I like Craggy Range. They've done a lot of really interesting things. They make some of the best reds in New Zealand. It's very, very cold in New Zealand, but they found a particular spot called Gimlet Gravels, which is an old riverbed where they can grow Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and Syrah, and it ripens. It's most places in New Zealand grow cooler climate grapes like Pinot Noir and Sauvignon Blanc. Sauvignon Blanc has really the New Zealand style is a style that people really enjoy because it is zippy and flavorful and well, it's not subtle. It's just not subtle. It's quite expressive, and you can really taste the different flavors. You can taste the fruit. In this one, I could definitely also taste that bell pepper vegetal quality, which is typical in the Sauvignons, in Sauvignon Blanc, also in Cabernet Sauvignon. You often get a little bit of that fresh cut bell pepper, or sometimes it's actually jalapeno if it's really, really cool climate. This comes from Martinborough. A lot of the wines that you see are from Marlborough, which is on the South Island, in the northern part of the South Island, but Martinborough is on the North Island in the southern part. And family owned, the Peabody family has owned this since 1993, and I think a good example of New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Let's move on to wine number two. All right. Relatively light color, isn't it? What we would say maybe a pale straw color in this wine. So not a lot of pigment. Wow, it's pretty. It's different than the last wine. That's what I love about wines in general, is how each wine has distinct personality when you smell and taste it. This one's more, well, right off the bat, I would say the New Zealand style of Sauvignon Blanc is an extroverted style of wine. This, in the nose, it seems quite a bit more introverted. It's really pretty, and it's not as boisterous. It's not as expressive. I do get some fruit. But it's more of a tart green apple and pear, kind of an underripe pear though. Just that crisp pear. The other thing in this wine that I get a real kick out of is it smells like wet stones to me. It smells like spring water. When we used to hike, sometimes we would drink from the streams that were coming down, and that water, had washed over stones for quite some time, and it picks up those minerals. And there's something about this wine that tastes like those stones, or that smells like those stones to me. Otherwise, there is a slight lemon or a lemon blossom note So again, so subtle and so pretty. Isn't it pretty? That citrus, the apple, the stone, a lot of tart, acidity, and a persistence. The finish carries on with that stony minerality. Lovely, lovely wine, and a little more shy, a little more reserved than the last one, which I think is interesting because part of the goal of this of this liquid experience is to discover styles that impact you, that you appreciate. And so with these first two wines, there's a real contrast in styles, from a much more extroverted New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc to this wine, which I'm going to unveil. So if you would like to pause, I'm going to bring it out right now. Okay, well, this is also a Sauvignon Blanc. So I thought it would be fun to compare a couple of Sauvignon Blancs. This comes from France, from the Loire Valley, from a village called Sancerre. And Sancerre is a famous village for their Sauvignon Blanc. This shows very true to my expectations because they tend to be more subtle. They tend to be understated, and the best of them have a little bit, have a stoniness to them. There's different styles, and as things warm up, I'm tasting more that have some tropical notes and a little bit richer. But this for me is a little more classic Sancerre style, and they use no oak in this wine whatsoever. It's all stainless steel, so it's just pure expression of the Sauvignon Blanc grown in Sancerre. In the last wine, they used just a hint of oak and a hint of new French oak, which I think in some ways rounded out that wine. It particularly up front, it was a little bit rounder, where this is a little more focused. Man, I do like that wine. Okay, let's move to the third wine. Little deeper color. I have some tartrate crystals in mine. Sometimes wines that are not filtered and not cold stabilized, they have little crystals at the bottom, and it concerns some people, but it's not something to be concerned about. In fact, it's a sign that the wine's still alive. And sometimes they call them tartrate crystals, will just will kind of fall out of the solution and into the bottom, and they don't taste bad, but they don't taste great. So I'm not going to drink this to the bottom, but I've got little crystals in there. So when I smell this wine again, different experience. More a lot of fruit and a lot of stone fruit, peaches, nectarines. Citrus, blossoms, more, and honey, almost honeysuckle, sweet blossoms. Really, all and I get almost a tropical fruit note, like mango and papaya. Wow, expressive in a really loving, generous, perfumed way. Really ripe and expressive. What else is that? Like kiwi, maybe kiwi. Yeah, I like that call. It's got some kiwi in the nose. I'm not getting any stone like the last wine. I'm just getting more fruit and more flowers. Rich, isn't it? It tastes like it tastes like biting into a fresh nectarine because there's body there. There's this sweet, or maybe not sweet, but a ripe stone fruit flavor, and then that flavor lingers. Very, very well balanced wine. Uh, there's a there's another quality that's not just the fruit. That's kind of like I guess this is a fruit, but a gooseberry. Have you ever had a gooseberry? Um, Gooseberries have a sour, sweet and sour quality, and this seems to have a little bit of that. What do you think of this wine? It's classy, isn't it? It's well balanced. It's well structured. Nice fruit, persistence at the end. Very that flavor just holds on. Beautiful. Any guesses what this is? Are you well? Pause it now. But maybe you're seeing a theme here. So this is another Sauvignon Blanc. This one comes from California. This comes from a producer called Spotswood that I adore. They are in St. Helena in Napa Valley. Though the fruit for this comes from their estate in St. Helena, but also from the Sonoma side and from Atlas Peak and maybe a little from Carneros and Knights Valley. Anyway, they're getting their Sauvignon Blanc from a lot of different places and blending it together. It's lovely though. It's lovely, and of course it's lovely because the Spotswood, everything about Spotswood is lovely. They make top-notch Cabernet Sauvignon, and they make this great Sauvignon Blanc. They've been the 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 winery has been there since the late 1800s, but it was I think it was 1972 that the Novak family purchased the property, and they've done so much to. It's just such a beautiful. They're beautiful people. It's Beth Novak now that is running the show there. I've just had nothing but positive experiences with Spotswood. They've had some of my some favorite winemakers of mine. I think my brother's watching this and will remember when we visited Soder Winery in the Willamette Valley, and Tony Soder was an original winemaker, and Mia Klein and Rosemary Cakebread. Just a lot of really, really decent, beautiful people that have always made balanced, wonderful wines. So I'm a huge fan of Spotswood, and I hope you liked it. So that's 3 different examples of Sauvignon Blanc there. The one example that is missing, because we're going to move into the reds, we're not doing 4 whites, is white Bordeaux, and maybe another time we'll taste a white Bordeaux. It's an interesting style because they use a little bit of oak, and they also blend it with a grape called Semillon, and it tends to be a little bit fuller in flavor, and the oak notes, they don't use a lot of new oak, they use used oak, but it rounds out the Sauvignon Blanc. So some of those tart, rough, or not really rough edges, but I found with these first 2 wines that they were zippy, really zippy, and the white Bordeaux style tends to soften that zippiness. Those are wonderful wines too, and I recommend you go out and get a white Bordeaux and see how it compares to these. Let's move into the reds now. First thing that I notice is the color on this wine, where a lot of red wines have that ruby, that just pure ruby red color. This seems to have some orange and slightly browning notes. And that can mean a couple of things. It can sometimes mean the grape varietal that is used, and sometimes it means age, or a combination. It seems there are a couple of grape varietals that quickly brown, that they oxidize more quickly than others. And then, and all red wines over time will kind of deteriorate towards brown. So something tells me this might have a little age on it. Wow. It's interesting, the sweetness in the nose. Almost like a candied cherry, like sugar candy. There's like caramel. There's a spice note. Oh, a deep spice note. Some tobacco. It seems like a spice rack too. Nutmeg and cinnamon and whatever those little ones that you poke into ham. Forget what those are called. There's flowers. There's some herbaceous notes. Almost a little truffle. Sweet, isn't it? And not real fruit dominated. More what I would think is oak dominated. When a lot of wines spend time in oak, and before they go into the barrel, they will roast, or they'll fire roast the barrels, which basically caramelizes them the way that when they torch the sugar on top of a creme brulee, and those caramel, vanilla notes will come out in the wine if it spends a significant amount of time in the barrel. This has got a lot of those notes. Boy, it's pretty. Very spicy, isn't it? Lots of spices. Almost. I mean, it's just cinnamon and nutmeg. The one that I can't remember. It's just that little one that you poke into ham. I cannot remember it, but that's whatever that is. That's what I'm getting out of this. I'm getting some wood flavors like cedar, cherries, and plums, but kind of sitting back. It's delicious, isn't it? It's delicious, and it's not fruit forward. So you may or may not like this wine. It's got a lot of different things going on, and the age is impacting it. This wine seems to have some age, which integrates things, and there's also just a lot more than just the fruit going on. I'm going to tell you what it is, so you can pause now, and then I will tell you. Yes, this does have some age on it. It's from 2010, and it is a Rioja Reserva from La Rioja Alta. They call it Viñardanza, and this is a favorite wine of mine. We pour it at the resort by the glass, and the staff loves it, and people love it. It's made from mostly Tempranillo. I think 20% Grenache in this wine. It spends 3 years in American oak barrels, and that is what gives it some of those spice, caramel notes. American oak tastes different than French oak. It's a little more pronounced flavors, a little more exaggerated wood flavors in general. Anyway, that's a treat. I hope you like that wine. Wine number 5. Different color, isn't it? I would think, based on the color, that this is not so old. So that's that ruby color that I was talking about. And in the middle, it's medium ruby going out to a lighter ruby. They call it meniscus, but that outside is a little lighter in color. But this is just pure ruby red, no browning. Whoa. Wow. So there's this deep earth note right off the bat. Gosh. Like minerals or graphite. There's a meatiness, like pastrami. Do you get a kind of pastrami note with all that black pepper and a sour element, almost a sour cherry? Really interesting. Floral, like violets. Crazy perfumed wine. Yeah, this is interesting. Pastrami though. I get a lot of this pastrami. Yeah, pretty cherry and violet. Little bit of blueberry and blackberry, like blackberry jam, isn't it? Was it Knott's Berry Farm that was blackberry their berry? There's a particular berry that Knott's Berry Farm created. Some raspberry, spice notes, but more pepper and mineral and kind of not graphite, just kind of a stony quality to this that's kind of hard, kind of severe. There's a lot of different things going on in this wine. There's that severity. There's that, boy, it's there's a lot of earth on this wine, and then it has these fragrances that are just so beautiful. So it's an interesting juxtaposition of these different qualities. Herbal, little bit stemmy. I wonder if they're including some stems in when they do the fermentation. Some wineries, actually the Craggy Range is one that they use. They don't just pick all the grapes. They will leave some stems in there, which gives some green notes. I don't know if you ever chew on stems. I don't, but I think winemakers do, because they add another element to the wine, and they give that grippiness to the wine. This is really interesting. It's enchanting. It seems also a little young to me. I think this wine's going to improve with some age. I'm going to tell you what it is now. This is Côte Rôtie from Pierre Gaillard. And Côte Rôtie is made from Syrah. It's from the northern Rhone portion of France. And it's made from Syrah, and also a white grape called Viognier can be added. And in this wine, it's 10% Viognier. Viognier is very perfumey, pretty, and they actually ferment the Syrah and the Viognier together. And anyway, it makes for a very interesting combination. This is the furthest northern part of the Rhone Valley, and these wines tend to be really, really perfumey, and this is a good example. I just think it might need a little more time, but it's an interesting Syrah's an interesting grape. It's an interesting grape with all that kind of pepper and herbal and meatiness, and with the Viognier it becomes somewhat enchanting. All right, let's finish with the last wine now. With the red wines, the color's been really, really interesting. This is a little lighter color, and it's browning a little bit, although not so. Well, it seems to go out almost all the way to the edge with that same medium brickish color. Gosh. This is also, all three of these red wines are unusual. None have been about fruit. It's been more about earth. This has got almost like when you're, well, it's got this kind of sun-baked soil quality, like the sun beating down on the earth that you can sometimes smell. There's tobacco. There's some herbal notes like oregano. The fruit on this wine, more cherries and red fruit. There's a licorice root note to this wine. Strong. Do you get that licorice or anise? I'm getting a lot of that out of this wine. Whoa. Full, dry, serious wine, and so delicious. And you get how those flavors don't go away. So hopefully you like the flavors, because if you don't, you got to stick with them for a little while, because it just seems to stay on the palate. All of those flavors, very earthy, lots of tobacco, lots of herbs, but savory herbs like oregano and maybe a little sage. Very drying. It's very tannic, and